Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff with Fluent American checking in, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about sports, specifically looking at baseball. Now, I know a lot of countries don't know much about baseball and things like that. However, it is a sport that has had a pretty big impact on English and language, and you're going to see these expressions, not only in informal settings like on the radio or in movies or on TV, but you're also going to hear them in business, um, in situations like that. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be for informal settings, it can be for formal settings as well. Also, if you're studying for tests like TOEFL or IELTS or any other type of test too, these are expressions that you can also use there as well. These can also boost your score. So we're going to be referring to a couple of different expressions from baseball. And again, I forgot to set it up for sharing my screen. What's up, Ibrahim? Good to see you, man. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate your support. Um, but yeah, we're going to be, I forgot to share my screen. So instead, I have the link to the document. So if you want to follow along with me there, that's perfectly fine. Or in case you're watching this video later, you can just check out that Google slide if you have access to Google. Um, yeah, so again, all these things are going to be related to baseball. And just heads up, you may hear my son in the background a little bit because it's not quite that time. Okay. Also, if there's other sports that you have questions about, other sports that you would like to hear a couple of expressions for, be sure to let me know. We can also kind of talk about those sports too. But again, primarily we've been focusing on baseball. Okay. And in our document, on our very first slide, the first one you're going to see is ballpark. Ballpark. Ballpark can be used as a noun or as a verb, like to give a ballpark, or just ballpark in general. Also, in terms of pronunciation, you want to make sure that you're stressing the first syllable, ball, ball. This is your ah sound. So you don't actually need to pronounce those L's. You can use more of a dark L. It's really key to just pronounce the ah sound. And then park. You want to watch out for that R sound. What I see with a lot of students is they kind of struggle with the ah sound when it's paired with an R. So you want to make sure you get that ah sound long enough before the R. It's like park, park. And if you're more used to British English, you want to make sure you're pronouncing that R as well. It's not park, it's more park, park, ballpark, ballpark. And again, not ballpark, it's ballpark. Hey, so Beta, good to see you, man. If you have any questions again about any sports, things like that, be sure to let me know. All right, so what does this ballpark mean? What does it mean to ballpark or ballpark? Well, it means like an estimate or a guess. Okay. Oh, a question about the R sound? Well, we can definitely talk about R sounds too. Is it just the general pronunciation? Let me know what the question is specifically. Um, so again, a ballpark though um, is about making an estimate or making a guess, especially related to like prices. You see it a lot for price estimates. So, for instance, you can see in the example sentence, the contractor ballparked it would cost $300. So, like he ballparked it would cost. That means like he guessed or he estimated that it was going to cost about $300. Okay. You can also use this as a noun. You can say like a ball. You can say a ballpark or a ballpark estimate. So, like for instance, uh, the ball you could say like the ballpark he gave was $300. Okay, or the ballpark estimate he gave was $300. Okay, so again, you can use it as a noun, you can use it as a verb, pretty flexible, and again, just means an expectation or estimate for a cost. Um, just a quick note to respond to this question. So we have a question about R sounds. When I say the word friend, my friends say what? Okay. Um, a key thing with the R sound, and this is also related to park. In American English, we're not rolling R's. There's no rolled R in American English. It's always going to be like a r with the back of your tongue high. In the front of your tongue, there's a couple different positions you could do. That's another thing that makes the R difficult, is there's lots of options. But the key thing is you need the back of your tongue high. That's always true. And then for the front, for most of my R sounds, I'm curling the front of my tongue up, right towards the top of my mouth. Okay, so it makes like a U shape with that curl. Back of your tongue high, front of your tongue high, middle of your tongue a little bit down. And again, it's going to sound like r, r. So when you're saying like friends, friends. And same thing again, like in ballpark, park, friends. It's not friends, it's friends. So you want to make sure you're not rolling the R. Okay, and it should sound like fr. Other common combinations that can be tricky like this, like if you have a BR combination, like for instance in like bridge. Again, it's not bridge, it's more bridge. Okay, and again, we're not rolling the R. Okay. If you have some more example words that you'd like to see, be sure to let me know. Also, if you have questions on ballpark, be sure to let me know as well. Let's take a look at our second word. Second expression, I mean, drop the ball. To drop the ball. So again, this is an expression, it's a verb phrase. If you drop the ball, that means that you lose control of something or you handle something poorly. Like for instance, you think one of your friends is going to help you out, but then they don't help you out. So you can say your friend dropped the ball. Another example from our sentence, like our company dropped the ball and missed the deadline. So we weren't able to do our work. Something didn't go well. Okay, we dropped the ball, the company dropped the ball, we missed the deadline. They needed something. We said we could do it, but we couldn't do it. So that was a problem. Okay. So drop the ball has a negative sense. You should associate this with a negative situation. Drop the ball. Just another quick thing about pronunciation for drop. Kind of related to what we just talked about for the R sound. You don't want to roll it. It's not dra. It's just dra. When you see the letters DR together, it makes almost like a j sound with a slight R attached. So it's going to be like dra. And then that O, it's going to have an ah sound, like ah, op, drop, drop the ball. Okay. And again, so you should associate that with negative situations. It's not a good thing if you drop the ball. As I go through this again, if you have questions on these, be sure to let me know and I can talk about them a little bit more. Next one, to be up. So like, for instance, if someone says you're up, or if someone says I'm up, that means that like it's your turn. It's your chance to do something. Okay. So it means like you're the next person. This is helpful also, like for instance, in like games, if you're playing a game and someone just went and now it's your turn, you say, oh, I'm up. Situation that we have in our example sentence. I already tried talking to the boss once. You're up. So that means I already did something. It didn't go well. It's your turn. You can try. I tried. It didn't work. You can try. It's your turn. You're up. Okay. So again, it indicates that the next person can go to try to do something. Okay. We had another question about R sounds really quick while we're on it, related to the ones we talked about. So we have a couple lists. So we have friend, Friday, first, Persian, crayon, brown. These are all going to have the same type of R sounds, honestly. Friend, Friday, first, Persian, crayon, brown. First and Persian will be slightly different just because you have those. You don't have a consonant before them. You have a vowel sound before them. But in terms of the R itself, it's the same. Back of your tongue high, curl the front of your tongue up. Okay. Friend, when I was saying it was slightly exaggerated, it's like friend. You don't need to say like friend, just friend. Okay, so like friend, Friday, first, Persian, crayon, brown. I hope that's helpful. All right, so we just talked about you're up. Our next one, to hit it out of the park, to hit something out of the park, or you could say ballpark as well, hit it out of the ballpark. This means to do something really, really well. If you're familiar with baseball, or if you're familiar with this expression like a home run, this is a good thing in baseball. It's the time when you score a lot of points. And that's kind of what this is referring to. If you hit something out of the park, you just hit a home run, which is another expression you may see paired with that. Okay. Hit it out of the park means to do something very, very well. Okay. So like for instance, in our example, our sales team really hit it out of the park. They got a great new contract. They hit it out of the park. They did a great job. You know, if you're a teacher and you gave a test and your student does really well on the test, you can say, oh, you really hit it out of the park. You did great. Okay. So again, hit it out of the park. If you don't remember anything, try to remember this, that it's a positive thing. If you hit something out of the park, that's a good thing. Okay, they did something really well. Our next expression, right off the bat. This means like immediately, all at once. It just takes a second. You already know right from the beginning. Okay. So before I opened the email, I knew right off the bat what the boss was going to say or what was going to be in the email. I knew right off the bat. Or like for instance, as soon as I looked at him, I knew right off the bat that he needed help, you know. Or for instance, as soon as I looked at my dog, I knew right off the bat that he wasn't feeling well. Okay. So again, it's just immediately, as soon as you saw it, you knew. Another baseball expression, just more and more of like an adverbial phrase. Okay. A lot of times it's paired with the verb to know, like to know something right off the bat, or even the verb to see right off the bat. Okay. Notice also just in terms of pronunciation, just a couple of things. We have a question about home run. I'll be right there. But for right off the bat, notice that linking between right and off. That T is going to take a fast D sound. So instead of saying right off, you hear that t, t. Yeah, in American English, you're not going to hear that as often. It's going to become a fast D sound. It's like right off. Notice that that D is also going to attach to the off. So it's not going to sound like ride off. It's going to sound like right off, right off, right off the bat, right off the bat. Okay. We had a quick question about hitting a home run and like times you could say that. But I think a key thing to keep in mind for like hitting, if you say like you hit a home run, it's not just that you did something well. It means that like you did something really, really well. So I may not, if I just passed the test, I probably wouldn't use the phrase hit a home run. But like if there it was like 30 questions and I got every single question right, I think it would be okay if you said like, oh, I hit a home run. Um, I think that would be okay. I don't think you hear that expression as much with tests as much, but it's possible people would understand the meaning. I think that would be clear. Yeah, but it means not just to do something. It's not enough just to pass. You do something extremely well. Okay. Um, Ibrahim, let me know if that makes sense. Our next one, to come out of left field. Come out of left field. What this means is that something happened that you were not expecting, and usually in a negative way. Like to come out of left field. Left field is a part of the field when you play baseball. And again, it means something is unexpected. So, for instance, my promotion really came out of left field. I thought they were going to fire me. Okay, so I wasn't expecting to be promoted, but there it was. Then it happened. Okay, so it can also be used for positive things too, but a lot of times it's used for things that are a little bit more negative. Okay. For instance, someone can ask you a question out of left field that maybe like you weren't prepared to answer, you know, or like someone can ask you something that you weren't expecting. Like for instance, I don't know, if you're asking someone out on a date, like you say, "Hey, would you want to go out with me sometime?" Like that question to the other person, maybe it will come out of left field, like the other person maybe wasn't expecting it. Okay, so again, it has that element of surprise. Also, just in terms of linking, come out of. Um, Notice that come out. Just talk about that linking there really quick. So you're ending come out. You're ending come with the M sound, then you have out with the O. So that M is going to slide on. It's like come out. And then again, what we saw previously with that T is going to link with the of. So it's going to make a fast D sound again. It's like come out of, come out of, come out of, come out of. And the stress is going to be on out, come out of left field, come out of left field. Also, in terms of stress, you're also going to stress field, not left. It's not left field, more left field. Came out of left field, came out of left field. Okay. Last couple ones that I wanted to just touch on. Speaking of which, next one is touch base. To touch base with someone. This is an expression that you may already be familiar with, a relatively common one. To touch base means like to contact, to like check and see how something is going, how something is progressing, like to touch base. A quick pronunciation thing, touch is going to have that schwa sound. Question I always want to teach non-native speakers. I'll get to that question in a moment. For touch base, you have that schwa sound. So it's not touch, it's more touch, touch. So really like relax your mouth, mostly closed, relax your tongue, just quick, touch, touch, touch base, touch base. Also note that when I'm linking there, I'm not releasing the breath on the ch. So I'm not being like touch. I'm just saying touch base, touch base, touch base. So a lot of times that breath is going to slide more onto the b. Touch base, touch base. Um, a lot of times the full expression for this is to touch base with someone, like to touch base with you or touch base with my boss or touch base with my team. And again, this means to contact them to just see how things are going. So for instance, my boss called to touch base and see how the project was. Notice that in this example, I just say my boss called to touch base. I could also say my boss called to touch base with me, but it's not necessary. You just say my boss called to touch base. Okay. It's like they wanted to see how the project was. Like, hey, did we finish it? Are we 50% done? Whatever the situation is. Okay, so those are some quick things for touch base. Um, Before we take a look at the last one, just a couple quick things. So again, what is one word that I always want to teach non-native speakers? That's a one word. That's a huge question there, even though it's just one word. Um, I don't know if I have a specific word. One thing is to say that I'm very interested in poetry, in writing. I think a lot of people when they're learning English, people. Why are people learning English? A lot of times they're doing it because they feel they need it for job, for work, or for travel. Which is a shame because I think English is actually I think it's a beautiful language. I think it has um, in terms of art and writing and things like that. I think it has a lot to offer. One of the things I'm very interested in is poetry, and these types of things i- they allow you to play with the language a lot more than when you're just like writing an essay or you're just focusing on work related expressions. English can be a lot of fun in terms of the writing, but I think a lot of my students aren't necessarily interested in that because they're more like goals related to work or for things that are more applicable to their own lives. Um, Art isn't for everybody. Poetry isn't for everybody. um, that being said, I think that um, that aspect of language can give you more opportunities to play with it. You can get a lot more creative with your expressions. I'd love to see students playing with things like metaphors and similes more. Metaphors, these are how you make comparisons in the language. You know, Instead of saying, for instance, that oh that person's really tall, saying like oh that guy was a mountain, or like oh man, or like if someone's like really big, you say oh man that guy's like a whale. Like these types of comparisons, I think make your language and description a lot more interesting. Um, but it's something that a lot of students aren't necessarily as focused on. So that's not quite an answer to your question, but that is one concept that um, I do enjoy looking at, that I don't necessarily always have a lot of opportunities to explore. Okay. Um, our last word. Oh, we also have a question about how common are these expressions? Extremely common. Sports expressions are everywhere. It's one of those things that the more you learn, the more you start to notice. Um, that's why I really like teaching them because I think they're super important. You're going to hear these in movies. You're going to hear these on the radio. You're going to hear these again, like I have in the lesson description. You're going to hear these in meetings. You're going to hear these when friends are talking to each other. Um, these are really good expressions to know. And again, you can also use these in test settings. You can use these in your personal life. You can use these at work. So the flexibility for them is also a real big advantage for them. I really do think these things are key. Yeah, I really do. Um, yeah, sports things are everywhere. Just other couple quick things before we wrap up. I have one more I want to take a look at, but just some notes. Feel free to please check out, for instance, our Facebook page. Subscribe to the channel. We're always trying to get new content out. Every day I try to have a quick exercise, even if it's not super long, for you guys to continue practicing. Because our goal is to, Ibrahim, this also ties to your question too. I want to give you language that will make you sound more comfortable in English. I'm not just worried about pronunciation. I want you to feel confident, in the language that you're using. I want you to feel like when you're communicating with people, they're approaching you like they would approach a native speaker. I want you to have that type of relationship with people, because I think it makes you feel more confident and less separate from English speaking communities. I want you to feel like you're a part of English speaking communities. So the things we talk about are things that I think will really help you feel like you're a member in whatever community you're trying to be a part of, whether it's for work or whether you move to another country where they're speaking English. I want you to really feel like you belong. Um, Speaking of that, so again, feel free to please subscribe to the channel. We just launched our Patreon. Um, Patreon, if you're not familiar with it, it's an opportunity where if you contribute a certain amount per month, you get special perks. So, for instance, if you do $1 a month, then you get some shout outs, some personal thank yous in our YouTube videos. If you do $5 a month, that gives you access to our private Telegram group. Okay, our Telegram group, we do pronunciation exercises every day, and I provide immediate feedback. So if you're trying to get just maybe a little quick practice, a couple minutes every day, just some regular pronunciation practice, and you need a little bit of a reminder, I think that's what that option is for. Okay. And then one of our other main categories is if you do $10 a month, then you get the Telegram group, you get the shout out. And then also you get access to one of our native U workshops where we actually analyze conversations between native speakers, and that comes included. You get one a month for free. Okay. So a lot of these things actually pay for themselves. Like if you're trying to get teachers and things like that, you're going to be paying more than $5 a month. If you're trying to join a class, you're going to be paying more than $10 a month. So um, those are the things that I'm trying to do, trying to keep it as low cost as possible, but also still give you opportunities to improve. So definitely check out the Patreon page. We had another question from Ibrahim. People who say it's impossible to sound like a native. I don't know. I'm all about growth, growth mindset. I think that everyone is capable of growing. I think a lot of the people that say like it's impossible to sound like a native, those are probably people that think that, oh, only children can learn a language or things like that. And I just don't think that's true. Languages are hard, but they're not hard. In that, like, if I bought you a plane ticket and flew you to a new country and left you there and you didn't know anybody, um, and then I came back to see you in like 5, 10 years, my guess is that you'd probably naturally have picked up some of the language of wherever you are, just by being there. The same thing wouldn't happen, if I if I flew you a math textbook and said, okay, learn this, and then in 10 years came back, I don't know how well you would do with the math, but with the language, I think that you would naturally pick up things. People are designed to learn languages. It's part of our biology. So I don't personally agree that it's impossible to sound native like. I think you can sound really native like. I think you can blend in, and that's kind of the goal again with the videos. I want people to feel like they're a part of their communities. There's lots of people who get tired of being asked, oh, where am I from, or things like that. They're tired of hearing questions like that. It makes them feel like they still have so much to learn. Um, and that's the goal of our videos, to try to make sure to minimize that. I think that if your goal is to sound native like, let's go for it. Let's do it. Why not? I think it is possible. Yeah. All right. I know we got kind of sidetracked there for a moment, but if you guys have other questions, feel free to let me know. Be happy to talk about them. Our last expression is to throw a curveball. Throw a curveball. This is somewhat related, like come out of left field, and this one is going to be a little bit more negative. So again, come out of left field, we said, was sometimes negative, could also be positive. And then throw a curveball is usually going to be a lot more negative. Okay. It's like throw a curveball. If someone throws a curveball, that means that something was unexpected, and typically in a negative way. So for instance, our example sentence, our competitor's new product really threw a curveball in our plans to take the market. Okay. So again, that is something that I think kind of captures that curveball sense. Something happened that you weren't expected. It's like whatever disrupts you, that's going to be your subject. And then you could say it throws through the curveball. So for instance, like the flat tire in our car really threw a curveball in our plans to take a road trip. Or, for instance, the rain really threw a curveball um, for our birthday party, because now we had to change the venue or things like that. Okay. So those are some things to consider for curveball. All right, so those are my couple just quick, what was it, eight different idioms for baseball that I think are relatively common in American English. If you guys have again questions on other sports, I'll be around for a couple minutes to take a look and see if there's other expressions you want to hear or ones you have questions about, or even just related to pronunciation, grammar, or anything else English or life related. Um, even asked another question about, is it possible to interview a student who achieved native like level? Um, yeah, I mean, there's students that I can send a message to. Um, it's it's kind of a hard question to answer because are we talking about students that I guided from having no pronunciation knowledge to sounding really really good? And I think one thing too is that with a lot of students, pronunciation is something that you're always kind of working on. So I'll see if some people are interested. There's still going to be some things with their pronunciation that a native speaker might hear it and be like, "Oh, that sounds different," or something. They may not be able to say like, "Oh, you sound like you're from Europe," or "Oh, you sound like you're from somewhere in Asia." It may not be quite like that, but they may be able to detect something that's a little interesting in their accent. But yeah, I'll see if I can do an interview with this student in the future. Yeah, I think that's something we could take a look at. Yeah, that's a good idea, Avery. Um, yeah. Other questions, comments for me? I'll stay on again for a couple minutes just to see. I know that when you're studying a language, having motivation, having a goal, or hearing success stories can be really helpful. So I think that's good to keep in mind. Also keep in mind your own progress too. I think it's especially for like advanced level students learning a language. You want to make sure that you keep things in perspective because as you get to be advanced, it's very different than when you're a beginner. When you're a beginning student, you know it can seem like you learn so fast. One day you don't know how to order food in a restaurant, and then you take a class, and then at the end of the class you're like, oh my gosh, I know how to order food now from a restaurant. It's great. So the progress is really immediate. It's super clear. But if you're an advanced level student, those types of gains are a lot harder. They're You're working on things that are a lot more nuanced, they're a lot trickier to kind of see the progress on. So I think it's important, every couple of months to just kind of do like a little self assessment on things that you can do now that you couldn't do 5 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. Always just try to keep those things in context because otherwise I think it's easy to get discouraged. Um, yeah. So man, thank you for that. I'll consider that for future videos. So many ideas on video. Just a heads up that tomorrow our video is going to be looking at analyzing speech from an Italian speaker and just kind of see like why do they sound Italian. So we're going to be looking at their pronunciation, their intonation, their linking, and things like that. Talk about why do they have an Italian accent? What makes an Italian accent? Okay, so even if you don't speak Italian or know anything about Italian, I think it's still helpful to kind of analyze other people's speech and things like that. So I think you guys will like that video. Um, yeah, and besides that, like I said, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys have other ideas on topics you would like to see in the future, so already we got ideas about what we get ideas about interviewing people. We got ideas about things to teach, things I'd like to teach language learners about. So those are some great ideas. Um, yeah, we'll pursue them in the future. Thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate you being here. I hope to see you soon in our next video. You guys take care. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good afternoon. And yeah, bye.